Hey everybody, I'm Praying Medic, and this is my nightly news update and Q update for October 8th. Glad you could join me on the broadcast. Q has been very busy. We've got some news to get into, a little bit of Q drops, but before we go too much further, let me tell you about my book, Calm Before the Storm. If you are interested in learning more about Q, if you have friends or family members who would like more information, Calm Before the Storm is a very good resource. Covers some of the early months of Q's operation. Talk quite a bit in the book about the Iran deal and the Obama administration, the Clinton Foundation. There is a glossary in the back of the book that has over 500 terms, abbreviations, acronyms, names of agencies you may not be familiar with. And if you're following Q's posts and trying to do your decodes, that glossary can be very helpful. Calm Before the Storm can be found in most bookstores or ordered online. It's available through Barnes & Noble and through Amazon. And now let's jump into today's decode. For those of you who are following along at home, you can find Q's posts on a number of different websites, including qanon.pub, qalerts.app, and qag.news. Those are three sites that are currently showing Q's posts. Let's jump into our news for today. So last night, President Trump tweeted out that he is going to try to have the small remaining number of troops in Afghanistan home by Christmas. He had an interview this morning with Maria Bartiromo and gave a little bit more detail. He said there's about 4,000 troops left in Afghanistan, and he's going to try to have them all home by the end of the year. He said we're really just doing police type work there. It's not actual military engagement, and there's no reason for us to be there, so he confirmed that troops are coming home. In that interview with Maria Bartiromo, he said he was disappointed with Chris Wray, and particularly over the way that information and documents that have been requested for declassification have not been coming forward. He said they are slowly starting to get some documents out of the FBI. He did not say whether he would replace Chris Wray before the election. I don't think that that's a likelihood. From past practice, we can see that it's risky. You burn political capital if you fire an FBI director. First thing that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are going to do is accuse Trump of a Saturday night massacre, getting rid of the top cop and who is maybe investigating him. So the optics on that would be horrible. Don't expect that he's going to get rid of Wray before the election. I would expect that if he has serious concerns about Wray's ability, he'll be gone by the end of the year. Q has suggested that General Flynn might be his replacement. I know there's a lot of speculation there and reasons why he would not be a good candidate, but that is what Q has hinted at. In that interview with Maria Bartiromo this morning, President Trump expressed frustration with Mike Pompeo for not being able to hand over Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails. He knows they're at the State Department, and he's been frustrated with the fact that the State Department is not giving them up, despite the fact that Pompeo is head of State Department. But that was the only derogatory thing he said about Pompeo. He also said some interesting things about Bill Barr. He didn't disparage Barr, but he said that Barr has a potential to go down either as the greatest attorney general in history of the country, or it's going to be a sad situation. And he has been posting some things on Twitter recently that I think it's easy to take them the wrong way. I don't think it shows a lack of faith in Barr. I think that the president is simply trying to motivate his base and to let people in government know that he's got certain agendas he wants to accomplish. And he did say this. He said that if Barr is not able to pull the trigger and indict these people, all right, so he started this he started to say, I will find somebody who will do it. because he said, I'm not going to forget this. I'm not going to let this go. This is not going to be dropped. He didn't actually say he would replace Barr, but he said he's not going to let this go. And if Barr won't indict these people, and then he kind of cut himself off before saying, I'll find somebody who will. So he stopped short of saying that, but he definitely gave an indication that he is going to find someone to hold these people accountable. And that's been my view for a long time. You know, a lot of people are concerned that Barr is sympathetic to the deep state, that Wray is sympathetic to the deep state. Well, that's fine. They may or may not be. But I know this, and I know how President Trump is. He will keep on hiring new attorneys general until he finds someone who will pull the trigger. He didn't say a whole lot about the Durham investigation. He said we're going to find out what's going on with Durham in time. Didn't say a whole lot about that. All right, so last night there was a vice presidential debate. I did not watch it because I was having a strategic meeting with my lovely wife. And we are working on the next Q book, by the way. And we are working on this last chapter in North Korea. Holy cats. It keeps getting longer, and we keep adding things to it and adding some decodes. We hope to have it out pretty soon, hopefully within a week or so. But last night, there was a vice presidential debate. I didn't really get to catch it and just saw a few highlights of it. This morning, the debate commission announced that they were going to hold the second presidential debate virtually. So it'd be by teleconference or Zoom. And this morning, when he was interviewing with Maria Bartiromo, the president said he's not interested. He's not going to participate in a virtual debate. He said it's not a debate. Democrats are doing it because they want to hide Joe Biden. They want to keep him in his bedroom where he can be fed information from his team and have a little earpiece and have all his notes and have a teleprompter. So Trump's like, yeah, not going to do it. He's going to have a rally instead. So I don't blame him. And we knew this was coming. You know, the whole COVID thing was contrived partially to give Joe Biden reason not to hold rallies, not to do debates. Right. So those of you who thought that there wasn't going to be another debate, you're right. And the night of the first debate, there was a whole bunch of people. Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer said, I won't be surprised if there won't be another debate. And they were right. Maybe they knew that was coming. Maybe that was the plan. All right, so let's get caught up on some Q posts. Wanted to bring this up. The other night, Q posted, why are we being censored? Why are we being attacked daily? Why are we being condemned by Congress? 1984 thought crime. Okay, we just covered this post yesterday. Well, that same night, the president tweeted out, I have fully authorized the total declassification of any and all documents pertaining to the single greatest political crime in American history. What a lot of people did not know is that those two posts, that tweet by the president and that post by Q, there was a zero delta. They were posted at exactly the same time, 8:41. Now, it's very difficult to do that. And Q always posts first. If you go to CNN and look at the seconds on the president's tweet and the seconds on Q's post, you'll find that the president usually tweets 10 or 15, maybe 20 seconds after Q posts. So Q posts first, and then the president tweets. Now, there have been over 30 times over the course of Q's operation where president and Q posted at exactly the same time. Just do the math on it. It's very, very unlikely statistically for that to happen randomly. All right. In the following posts, Q gives examples of Washington corruption. So Q asked, how many people in D.C. does Clinton have dirt on? Well, I'll tell you my suspicion. Anthony Weiner's laptop supposedly has a folder called the insurance file. And there has been speculation that folder is full of blackmail, whether it's video, photographs, whatever. I would imagine Hillary Clinton has dirt on almost everybody in Washington. How many people in D.C. does Clinton have or had on payroll? She had a lot of people on payroll. Dark secrets, Q. We don't know the answers. These are rhetorical questions. You don't have to have the actual answers. Clinton Foundation, White House for sale. When Bill Clinton was in the White House, America was for sale. It It was for sale to the highest bidder. When Hillary was at State Department, the people who made donations to the Clinton Foundation, they got political favors. That's how Washington has worked for decades. Q asks what happens if Joe Biden became POTUS. POTUS is President of the United States, knowing he, through Hunter Biden plus two others, took massive amounts of bribes to change, look the other way, U.S. policy toward China, in favor of China. Would China own and control the White House? Q. Well, of course they would. China has owned and controlled Congress and the White House for a long time. That's the insurgency that we've been undergoing for the last 25 years. What happens if Joe Biden became POTUS, knowing he, through Hunter Biden and one other, took massive amounts of bribes to change, look the other way, to U.S. policy toward Ukraine, in favor of Ukraine? Would Ukraine own and control the White House? Well, yes, they probably would. You pay people, Joe Biden and his family, a lot of money, and you get political favors. Q wrote this: how much was McCain, through the McCain Institute, paid to peddle the Steele dossier? So John McCain was one of the first people, and a political figure, who came in contact with the Steele dossier. And it was garbage. It was a bunch of rumors and bar talk. But they knew they needed to weaponize it, and to do that, they needed to give it some a little bit of credibility. So they hired McCain, John McCain, to take it, shop it around, show it to people in Congress, make sure that it got around, to give it some credibility. So Q asked, what is the going rate for a United States senator to knowingly push false, unverified intel to the FBI, lending credibility? So the story there is McCain received the Steele dossier from an associate. He then took it to Harry Reid, and from there it went to Comey, and from there it sort of became evidence in their investigation. The document coming from a U.S. senator would be, of course, looked on a little more highly and taken more seriously than if it just came from some unknown source. Q asked this: why did Paul Ryan block all subpoena requests by Republican committee chairs? Well, that's an interesting question. So you do realize that the Speaker of the House has a lot of power. No resolutions are brought up on the House floor for a vote unless the Speaker decides that resolution is going to be voted on. So the Speaker controls what bills are and are not voted on. The Speaker also controls what subpoenas are issued by committee chairs. So Paul Ryan could and did apparently block subpoena requests by Republican committee chairs. What is the going rate for the Speaker of the House to obstruct congressional investigations for the purpose of delaying and or eliminating its findings? Protect. Why did Paul Ryan initially refuse to be Speaker? What was coming? Why did Paul Ryan retire at such a young age? Q. I don't know why Ryan refused to be Speaker. Maybe he was afraid of being controlled. What was coming? Well, the storm was coming. We know that a lot of people retired from Congress because they were told that the storm is coming, corruption's going to be cracked down on, you better get out, because if you're still there, when the music stops, you'll be going to prison. Q wrote this: only the illusion of democracy, only the illusion of for the people. Right, so we've been told for 200 years the government of the United States is by, of, and for the people, but that's only an illusion. Has been at least for 50 or 60 years. For the first time in a long time, our POTUS stands with and for the people, all assets deployed. Q. And then Q wrote this: shadow president, shadow government, information warfare, irregular warfare, color revolution, and insurgency. These are things we are all currently experiencing right now in the United States. A lot of other countries are experiencing them too. In this post, Q hints that blackmail, bribery, and corruption are going to be exposed. This was from yesterday. Threats, bribes, and blackmail being deployed at unseen levels. Dirty laundry, blackmail controls DC. Why are they protected? Threats, bribes, and blackmail, or sharing of like beliefs. Dark secrets. Let's see what happens. Q. The let's see what happens is, I think, a good omen. Suggests that President Trump and the military are maybe about to get to the bottom of all this. But we've been finding out now from some of these reports from people like Paul Sperry and Sean Davis at the Federalist that people in the CIA and FBI, Department of Justice, Defense Department are using blackmail to make sure that certain things don't get released and declassified. Next post. This is from last night. Q posted a link to an executive order by New York Governor Cuomo and wrote, "This executive order shall remain in effect until November 3rd, 2020. Was this ever about the virus?" Q. So the executive order here extends the state's COVID emergency. And I'll just read a little bit of this here. By the authority vested in me by the Constitution and laws of the United State of New York, I do hereby find that the disaster continues to exist for which affected state agencies and local governments are unable to respond adequately. So whenever you're going to create an emergency order, you have to deem that the local agencies are unable to deal with it, and that justifies the emergency order. Pursuant to the authority vested in me by the Constitution of the State of New York, I hereby continue the declaration of the state of disaster emergency effective March 7th, and as set forth in this order, the executive order shall remain in effect until November 3rd, Election Day. Imagine that. So the day after the election, all of this goes away. Wonder why? Because it was never about the virus. It was always about the election. All right, last night, Q posted this. Joe 30330. Arbitrary? What is 2020, the current year, divided by 30330? Symbolism will be their downfall. Q. Well, I did a little math, and the answer to that equation is 0.0666. Can't even make this stuff up. All right, Q posted a link to a YouTube video and asked, can music be healing? All right, 2 steps from hell. And let me see if we can play this. A little bit of it. All right, so there you go. A little bit of music from Q. Can music be healing? I have a friend, Del Hungerford. She has produced a lot of music, and her music, it's healing music. And depending on the frequency and the kind of music, I believe music actually can be healing. I did a podcast, gosh, this was probably 2 years ago, where I played some of her music, healing music, and I just spoke prophetically from what the Holy Spirit was showing me. And I basically commanded healing of various different illnesses and injuries and things on this podcast, along with the music. It was pretty interesting. I got a lot of emails and messages from people afterward who experienced different kinds of healing from listening to the music and just listening to me talk about and just command different things to be healed. So yes, I believe music can be healing, actually. All right, this post from Q was from last night. Do you remember when the media had wall-to-wall live, live in fear coverage regarding North Korea? All right, so when the president when he was running for office and then after he got elected, there was a lot of hysteria with the media saying that Trump was going to get us into war with North Korea. I remember the tweets and the news articles, and there was all this scare about Trump getting us into a war with North Korea. Do you remember when Hawaii accidentally sounded the incoming missile alarm? We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Well, let's talk about it now. So that was on January 13th, 2018, right? And for about a half an hour, the entire state of Hawaii was under the threat. A lot of them thought that there was an incoming ballistic missile and it was going to obliterate the state and millions of people were going to die. And then it turned out to be a false alarm, or so we were told. All right, so Q asked what happened. And this is in the broader context. What happened with all the scares? What happened with, the media pushing this fear about North Korea? North Korea no longer a nuclear threat? Mountain collapse? China seeking North Korea commitment to fire short or long-range ballistic missiles pre-election. Right, so this is what I talked about. Gosh, I think I talked about it last night. That my fear going into the election is not really it's civil unrest and rioting here in the country. I am worried that there's going to be another rogue attempt, by some rogue CIA agents to pop off another missile and attempt to start a war. That's my big concern right now. That's how desperate the deep state is. So on November 2nd, after the collapse of a mountain in North Korea that was thought to house underground nuclear weapons facility, Q posted this. What a coincidence, the mountain that housed North Korea's nuclear weapons and testing collapsed. Unbelievable timing. I wonder if critically important materials, as well as scientists, aka bomb makers, were inside when it happened. Shocking, no global news agency suspects we had nothing to do with it. Enjoy the crumbs. So Q basically hinted that Trump somehow may have dropped the rod of God or some classified weapon on that little nuclear weapons facility in North Korea and obliterated it. And of course, those weapons are not exactly known, and they don't talk about it, and so why would the news talk about something like that? All right, so following the Hawaiian false missile alert in January 13th, Tulsi Gabbard went on Twitter, and she went on a rant, and she was on a bunch of news stations talking about how Trump, was his administration a failure in leadership. And there's all this hysteria about how close we were to war with North Korea. And this is just an example of some of this search. I just did a search for articles about the Hawaiian missile alert. And it was just a lot of mainstream media chatter about, we're going to get into a war with North Korea. Well, of course, that never happened. So Q then reposted photos that were originally dropped on June 12th, 2018. Now, the relevance of this is on June 12th, President Trump was meeting with Kim Jong-un in Singapore. That's the day that Q first posted these images of this missile, right? And Q reposted the images last night and said, do you remember when they told you this was a helicopter? All right, so backstory on that. While looking through photos taken by a weather camera on the Kitsap Peninsula, Greg Johnson of Skunk Bay Weather spotted a photo with a mysterious object. Okay, that's this photo, and this is an enlarged image of it. The picture, which was taken at 3:56 a.m. on June 10th, showed a bright orange vertical streak in the early morning sky over Whidbey Island. Close inspection of the photo reveals the unmistakable shape of a missile. Some news outlets attributed it to lens flare, and some others said it was a photo of a helicopter. All right, well, that does not look like a helicopter to me. That looks like a missile, but I digress. So the most likely explanation is that it was a vertically launched missile from a submarine, and that's just what it looks like. Now, although the Navy denied any knowledge of a missile launch, Bangor Submarine Base is nearby, and that is home to Trident ballistic missile submarines. All right. Some people have mistakenly reported, a lot of people have mistakenly reported, that the missile launch was an attempt to hit Air Force One while it was in flight. That is not true. The president left from the G7 economic meeting in Quebec, Canada, for his trip to Singapore on June 9th, the day before the missile was launched. Okay. He left from Quebec and he traveled across the Atlantic. Air Force One landed on the island of Crete and then flew on to Singapore. I've documented all of this through tweets by the White House press pool and other ways of documenting it. So a missile that was launched from the Puget Sound on June 10th could not hit an airplane traveling eastward across the Atlantic when that plane departed the previous day. So this was not an attempt to take down Air Force One, even though a lot of people say that. That's not what it was. In this post from August of 2018, so about 3 or 4 months later, Q said, "How do you prevent the public release of incriminating acts that would forever strip their power away? How do you bind the hands of POTUS? Two-pronged situation. First, you test the strength of the midterm elections through private analysis, win-loss ratio. If the analysis is below a key metric without a chance for recovery, you start a war. Think missiles accidentally fired against who?" So Q has suggested that this missile launch was an attempt by the deep state to start a war while the president was in Singapore meeting with Kim. And fortunately, I would believe that the military knew about the missile launch, shot it down before it could cause any harm. Now, I said the other night that the Air Force had the E-4B Doomsday plane in Spokane at Fairchild Air Force Base, and it arrived there 2 days before this missile was launched. Missile launch was on June 10th. The E-4B showed up at Fairchild Air Force Base on the 8th. I don't think that was a coincidence. I think that the military intelligence knew that this missile launch was coming, and they made preparations for it. All right, moving along. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien today warned China against taking Taiwan by force, but he would not say what the response of the United States would be, and that is in keeping with our policy of strategic ambiguity. So he was speaking today at a university, Las Vegas in Nevada, and he just warned China, basically, don't try to take Taiwan by force. If you do, you don't know what our response is going to be. U.S. is required by law to provide Taiwan with the means to defend itself, but has not made clear whether it would intervene militarily in the event of a Chinese attack. So the ambiguity is intentional to keep China from knowing how we're going to respond. But I think it's significant that O'Brien specifically warned China today not to try to forcefully take over Taiwan. And Nancy Pelosi had a little rant this morning. She said that House Democrats tomorrow are going to be discussing how they're going to remove President Trump by the 25th Amendment. Stop me if you've heard this one. That just, to me, shows how desperate these people are. I actually listened to the video, watched a video of her this morning with her little orange mask on, trying to talk through the mask, and her kind of insane hand motions. She looked a little bit panicked, and I don't take seriously the idea that they're going to remove the president by the 25th Amendment. It's not going to happen. There's no reason for it. Also, there is no agreement yet on a new coronavirus relief package. They're going back and forth on this, but there's nothing that looks like it's going to be coming imminently anytime soon. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed up 122 points at 28,425. And that gets us caught up on all the news and Q posts for today. If you have been blessed by this message, you might want to support me on Subscribestar. There's a link to my Subscribestar page in the description box. There's also a link to my book, Calm Before the Storm, in the description box. Thank you for listening. I'm here Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, on Clout Hub, channel 115. Hope you can join me live. If you can't catch me live, my broadcasts are available on my website. If you go to prayingmedic.com/blog. By the way, I've been hearing your complaints about the videos on the website, so I've changed out the video player. And hopefully the video player that I'm using now will allow for screencasting and be a little bit more usable across devices and browsers. These broadcasts are also available on Podbean. If you've got a mobile device, you want to install the Podbean app. I've been podcasting on Podbean for years, and each Podbean episode, there is an audio and a video version. So if you like listening to the audio, you can do that. If you like listening to the video, all the videos, all my broadcasts are on Podbean. They're also on Apple Podcasts, and you can also go to BitChute. All my videos are available on BitChute as well. All right, gonna get going. Love you all. Please keep me and Denise in prayer. We greatly appreciate your prayers, especially as we're trying to finish up this next book. Keep the president in prayer. Keep Q and the team in prayer. Keep the military and the Secret Service in prayer. And I will catch you on the next broadcast.